Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of Another Pass, where we talk about movies and all the struggles that go into making them. If you like it, check out the whole podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Only Murders in the Building I loved as such a meta commentary on podcast and murder specific podcasts. And
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not a true crime podcast, but I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts as well. So doing a podcast about watching or listening to true crime podcasts was very it was quite a trip.
Yeah. I frankly wish that we were talking about that because that was such a fun show versus this movie, which, C plus B minus, that's about where I kind of feel with this whole thing. Like it's attractive looking.
Exactly.
It is very pretty. It is a very pretty movie. It needed some more editing. It's a little long, and there's a lot of Kenneth Branagh. So there's a lot of him.
So much Kenneth Branagh, and sweeping landscape shots just coming at you all the time. Just so much interesting camera angles.
So many.
The last time we talked about Kenneth Branagh on this podcast was for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where
it was an opera.
It was. There kept on being spots in that where I was like, so are they about to break out into song? And then they don't. But you feel like it should. And like the sets are all these big, very open, grand locations that feels like you're shooting an opera. And not just like you're doing a film that happens to be an opera, but like shooting the stage show of an opera to put out into theaters.
And it definitely showcases one of the most dangerous staircases I have ever seen constructed. Like just large and no handrail with very thin stairs. Oh. And it is scary. It is not even gothic. It's just a health hazard.
My goodness, that sounds terrifying. I'm fascinated by that. The aesthetics are really just, there's so much of them, of the aesthetics.
Yeah, and I will say 30 years later, Branagh has more control over the camera lens than he did for Frankenstein. And the very nature of the story being set on a train does force him into tighter confinements and at the very least more interesting camera work.
No, what you're saying is right. In comparison, this was reserved.
Right.
Okay.
But it is still Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah. And like once they get off the train, he has to give the operatic, the tunnel, the Last Supper homage, just all of those visual feasts, I believe he believes they are in his mind.
Yes.
So they're there. The Branagh mark is on there, but not the way that Frankenstein was, because sweeping sets and
yeah, absolutely. I kept thinking about I was watching it and I'm like, well, I mean, can we just take it down a notch? And then I started to question myself and think about Shakespeare. It reminded me of Shakespeare a bit, and like, what is the context in which you can do their most dramatic thing? Like, if not now, when? And I kept coming back to not now. Not in this.
I think it's interesting though, because I think there were things that were definitely dramatically shot in the first half of the film, but I feel like the film actually paced itself well in the very beginning. Once he gets on the train, I mean, there was a couple indulgences before he gets on the train, but in the train, the pacing of introducing the people on the train and that kind of thing, that's all like pretty good. It kind of moves quickly. Where I feel like it starts falling apart is when he starts his interrogation and it feels like this is a moment for everyone to have monologues. And then it gets kind of like, I feel like I'm in a stage production rather than a film. And from there, it just soars into getting infinitely more Shakespearean and Branagh sign off operatic, towards the end. I was just like, okay, this is, let's write the 11 o'clock number, because he should be singing it when he reveals who the murderer is.
Remember, if you like that clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.